Welcome to Voice of Soy, a content partnership with the Ohio Soybean Council on Brownfield. I'm anchor reporter Meghan Grebner. Today, we're going to have a conversation about the latest in soy-based biofuels production. With us is Madison Layman with the Ohio Soybean Council, Paige Thorson with Benchmark Bio, and Tom Verry with Clean Fuels Alliance America. Thank you all for joining us, and I look forward to this conversation today.
Yeah,
Glad to be here.
Glad to do it.
Let's start first, just kind of with from the checkoff perspective, or from the perspective of Ohio Soybean Council. Madi, talk a little bit about the biofuels industry and a little update from your perspective.
Yeah, so biofuels ultimately, or the biodiesel industry and the renewable diesel industry was ultimately created by farmers because we had that additional oil. We wanted to find a place to put it. We wanted to find an area for more profit. So biodiesel was created, correct me, Tom, in the 90s. So through that and through the last, trying to do my math, 20 plus years, we really developed the biodiesel market into something that's was almost ahead of its time. Currently, there's so many incentives to be greener, to be more sustainable. So a lot of companies are moving towards that sustainability goal. And one thing that's part of a lot of companies is that transportation sector. So really working with those trucking industries, even rail, even working with some of our farmers on the farm, the tractors, to get them to use more biodiesel and renewable diesel fuels to ultimately reach those sustainability goals. So with the checkoffs investment, it's better for the farmer's bottom line. Biodiesel adds 13% in value to every bushel of soybeans sold. So we see it as kind of a win-win for farmers and for companies that are looking to achieve these sustainability goals.
Tom, I'm going to have you talk a little bit and provide an update from your perspective as well, and what Clean Fuels Alliance America does and the work it does to grow demand for soy-based fuels.
Sure, Megan. We are Clean Fuel Alliance of America, formerly National Biodiesel Board, represents and works to develop markets for biodiesel, renewable diesel, and actually sustainable aviation fuel. So as Madi alluded to, we were created by farmers over 30 years ago, actually 1992, as a way to address the chronic oversupply of soybean oil. There was a glut. There was no market for it. And so in those 30 years, the farmers invested over $200 million. Ohio Soybean Council is very, very early member of the National Biodiesel Board. Neil Clark, one of your farmers, was a leader back then. That helped guide and develop that industry in the early days. So now it's we're projecting we're going to have over 4 billion gallons of demand of biodiesel and renewable diesel this year, using 12 billion pounds of soybean oil, which is about half of what we produce in the United States.
Paige, can you talk and provide your perspective through Benchmark Bio and kind of an update and background on the soy biofuels industry and your participation?
Yeah, so we just to give you a little background on it. So we're a small business in Ohio that we saw a need for infrastructure for distribution of biodiesel. So when we started in 2007, 2008, there was a good amount of production, a lot of it on farms around Ohio happening. So our idea was getting it had to be blended, it had to be handled correctly. So our idea was to fill the gap where the biodiesel needs to be blended and sent directly to fleets. So that was our concept back then. So we found an old fuel terminal, we refurnished the whole thing. It was very out of shape, but we redid it, reconnected a diesel pipeline, and installed a very, it's a ratio blending system, which means it's a very high speed, high pressure system that blends biodiesel and diesel. So then our market became fleets of buses, like at Ohio State. We do 20% biodiesel there. We do all the city of Columbus fire trucks and equipment. And it's evolved over time where people were very afraid to use it. into now where we have markets like construction companies who were very, very resistant at first. So our niche is to be a distribution point for biodiesel so that we buy from local companies and then we blend and distribute it from there. So that's been our niche in the market.
When you look at the biofuels market today, Madi, can you talk about why it's still so important? You mentioned some of those numbers and the value that it adds back to soy producers and soy farmers in Ohio, but can you talk a little bit more about that? Why this is still such an important market 30 plus years later for soy farmers, not just in Ohio, but around the country?
Yeah. So ultimately it boils down to making a more sustainable earth, sustainable world. So farmers have done sustainable practices for generations. This is just another thing that they're giving to the economy, to the US and the world, that furthers sustainability, that furthers those clean fuel alternatives. So really having farmers out there and knowing a little bit about biodiesel and RD and SAF, and knowing that their product is going into these other green products is just very valuable to them. I think it creates a sense of we're giving something back. We are ultimately, biasly saying, the backbone of the country in terms of providing feed, fiber, and fuel to everyone. So the checkoff's investment in these projects just furthers that availability in the market, that knowledge of these new clean fuels that are available here in the US. It's created here in the US for not just domestic companies, but international companies. And we're kind of almost on the cutting edge of this technology. So I think it's good to be ahead for the farmers. It's good to, again, just have that have that name to the start of these available clean fuels.
Tom, can you talk about the addition of renewable diesel and renewable soy diesel in terms of the sustainable aviation fuels and the growth potential for demand for soy oil and some of those other markets that are beyond like the B20 that we think about, or I think about at least on a regular basis?
Certainly, Megan. Yeah, sustainable aviation fuel is taking renewable diesel and further processing that to turn it into jet fuel. And the demand right now, we have 154 million gallons of capacity. That is the demand is increasing by leaps and bounds as all the major airlines have made sustainability decarbonization goals. And nobody's going to put a battery in a plane anytime soon, that's for sure. So they're really looking at SAF, as we call it, sustainable aviation fuel, as one of their key efforts to decarbonize the airlines. So last year, 2 years ago, was about 6 million gallon demand. Last year, 11 million gallons. It's going to double again. It's really going to double as fast as we can actually produce it. So we have one of our member plants, World Energy, out in Los Angeles, that's doing a $2.5 billion expansion. It's going to go from 40 million to 350 million gallon capacity. We have another member down in Houston, Texas, Diamond Green, that's putting in another 300 million gallons of sustainable aviation fuel. So they can use all the feedstocks out, any fat and oil they can use, but they're going to be feedstock constrained as everybody else. And soy is going to play a very important part of going into sustainable aviation fuel and renewable diesel.
Is that where you get excited about the opportunity and the demand and the continued support back to soybean farmers, knowing that these growth opportunities, whether it's sustainable aviation or isn't it also being used in like the shipping as well, like looking at those types of fuels and know that there's such a huge demand there and continue to support back to farmers?
Yes, and yes, Megan. I mean, I've been in the industry, believe it or not, since 1992 at the Missouri Soybean. And I have never seen the opportunities more exciting than for biodiesel, renewable diesel than today. And a lot of people are kind of like, well, renewable diesel, sustainable aviation is getting all the energy and excitement. But I think that the future for biodiesel has never been brighter than it is today. Just as you mentioned, marine use. Yes, we have the marine industry, the national, our U.S. and international are quickly adopting biodiesel. They don't want renewable diesel. Renewable diesel costs a little more, so they want biodiesel to decarbonize their supply chain, because their customers want their supply chain, their products decarbonized. And so we are working with very large shipping companies like Maris, who's using biodiesel in 600 ships across the world right now. And we just touched on that. There's so much opportunity there on for biodiesel and marine application, and over on the rail side, the same thing. We're working with all the class ones on using biodiesel in their application. We're working to get, which the Ohio Soybean Council is a supporter of the OEM project, or engine manufacturing project, to get higher approvals for biodiesel in railroad engines. Right now we're at 20%, but the railroads want 50%, 100%. So we're working with Wabtec, Progressive Rail to get those approvals. The Ohio Soybean Council is a funder of that effort. So the Ohio soybean farmers are supporting it. And right, yeah, Union Pacific's 5% of their fuel right now is biodiesel. That's, I think, their largest railroad in the country. So, and they have plans to go to B50 in the next 5 years. So we need rain today in the Midwest and Ohio and Missouri to get more beans, so we have more oil that we can turn it into biodiesel, renewable diesel, and sustainable aviation.
We talk about these really large markets, but that doesn't mean that this isn't available to farmers, and the use of B20 can be used by them as well in that or other blends of biodiesel. How does that market also come into play in the use and the supply chain to get it there? Paige, maybe that's a question. As you mentioned, you work with Ohio State University and the buses there, but also to get it on farm.
Yeah, so we do a lot of work with farmers and farm co-ops. We're very close with the Soybean Council, who connects us with a lot of farmers and that type of thing. We work with some big farmers co-ops, and they are very loyal to biodiesel. They understand that it's the whole cycle. It comes from the soybean, and they crush them, and then it gets reused right into their own equipment. When you look at it in Ohio. So we deliver to a lot of farmers. They right now, I think John Deere equipment, I know, does have OEM that goes all the way to 100% on some of their equipment, which is very rare, and we're in the north. But they can do it in the summer as long as they're going to run right through it. So yeah, we have a lot of applications for farmers use it like very much during this season and in the fall, mostly 20%. Another application that we've seen that's really just from a high blend usage is, we're in a mining area. We've got Southern Ohio with some mines down there. And those mines use biodiesel in their generators that they use inside the mines. Then they use 80 to 100% biodiesel because it's an indoor application. And as they've used it, they've found that lung disease has decreased by a significant number. I can't remember the exact number now, but it's significantly decreased lung disease by switching from petroleum diesel to biodiesel. So there's been a lot of application for things that you wouldn't necessarily, you think of fleets and railroads and everything, but there are also these niches with farmers and miners and some other areas that you wouldn't think of for biodiesel, but have been a great use and application. So it's really good. We actually have one of our drivers who's a farmer and drives for us part-time. And we do a lot of work with the farm co-ops all over the state.
Madi, how important is it also for your farmers and the farmers who are part of the Ohio Soybean Council and contributing their checkoff dollars to invest back in themselves and to bring biodiesel on the farm as well?
Yeah, so these investments by farmers are kind of the driving backbone to these marketing, to being able to work with the National Biodiesel Board, with Paige, I'll even throw in Clean Fuels Ohio. We work with them to promote more domestic Ohio product usage. So their investment in the checkoff drives these efforts. And again, like you mentioned, gives back to them, boosts their bottom line when it comes to investing in the checkoff. I think there's a study, we do a study every 5 years. For every dollar invested in the checkoff, they get about $12.34 back in value. So really finding these new markets, like Tom mentioned, the checkoff invests in these new markets, in exploration of all these possibilities of new opportunities, and just being able to find that and get back to their bottom line ultimately. Yeah.
Talk about the importance of the checkoff funding to organizations like Clean Fuels Alliance America, Madi, and the work that those checkoff dollars do to grow demand.
Yeah. So like Tom mentioned, we have several projects actually funded with Clean Fuels Alliance America, one of them being the original equipment manufacturers. We also work for standards, and Tom and Paige can definitely touch more on this than I can, making sure biodiesel is all up to standard. I'm trying to think of some more. We do have several, but a lot of it has to do with even communication and education. We have that with Clean Fuels Alliance America, as well as Clean Fuels Ohio. So informing fleets on where they can get biodiesel, why they should even use biodiesel, some help they can get in terms of, getting the biodiesel and really achieving their sustainability goals. So investing in those individual projects, like I mentioned, just the communication. We also have a couple of things with sponsorship broadcasts, like yourself, that kind of share the latest news on biodiesel markets, keep farmers up to date on where they are.
Paige, can you talk about the work that you've done with the Ohio Soybean Council and the importance that it plays in making sure that folks know the value and the quality of biodiesel?
Okay, I was hoping you would ask because I'm actually on the board of Clean Fuels Ohio. So Tom's on a national board for the Clean Fuels of SAF and RD and biodiesel. I'm on the local and the Clean Fuels Ohio board. And we are members, as well as the Soybean Council are members of this organization. And so, for example, this month is biodiesel month with Clean Fuels Ohio. So we'll have a panel next week of a bunch of people from around Ohio where we'll do a promotional and educational video for people around that might want to use it. The other thing that's been great is because the Soybean Council supports Clean Fuels Ohio as a member, they're able to fund all kinds of projects. For example, like they do a lot of fleet analysis because they do more than just biodiesel. They do all, considered low carbon fuels. So they go in and do a fleet analysis and will recommend, different things. And part of it is biodiesel. So they've been able to bring us into markets where there's been some resistance or where there's been, maybe never heard of biodiesel. So the soybean dollars flow a lot into the local organization that promotes biodiesel. So it's been a huge help, but I feel like it's done a really good job of opening up different markets for us and for other companies around Ohio. It's been great.
It's really nice to get the individual perspective, the state perspective. Tom, take us home in the national perspective about why it's important that state soybean checkoff dollars like Ohio are invested in Clean Fuels Alliance America.
Well, we need more of their oil, and so we absolutely cannot. That is going to be our main feedstock to grow our industry in the future to get to our goal. We want 6 billion gallons of biodiesel renewable diesel by 2030, which is not very far away. And so we over half of that we think will be soy-based biodiesel renewable diesel. So my message to Ohio soybean farmers is plant more beans, make more money. So we will take care of all your oil and get a nice premium for it because it is the low cost, low carbon fuel right now. Everybody wants to decarbonize their fleets and their supply chains. And of course they all rush to electric vehicles. Fine, go ahead and do that. But there's large parts of their fleets there's no electric option for them. It might be for decades. That would probably be in the short time frame. And so, well, Madi already touched on this. We can give you greenhouse gas emissions now, cleaner fuel now. I love your story page about the mines and the I'm gonna follow up with you on that. But yeah, we're cleaner, better now. So we need more soybeans. Yeah, we love working with Ohio Soybean Council and Madi and Kurt Merritt and Tom Fontana and them folks. So we're looking forward to working together in the future.
Can I add one thing, Meghan?
Okay.
You know, one thing when you heard you say that about doing it now, Tom, that's been a big thing for us where people say, well, we're going to go electric in 10 years or 20 years or what, that type of thing. And we say, okay, great. We're a transitional fuel. Why would you wait to save on carbon emissions until 20 or 30 years from now? And that definitely involves soybean biodiesel. That's the best and least expensive way they can transition immediately. So I can 100% agree with you, what you said, Tom.
Madi, any final thoughts?
I don't have much other than, again, just piggybacking off of those two. It's available now. It's what we have. Really talk to your fuel distributor, see if they don't already do some. But if you're a farmer interested, reach out to the Ohio Soybean Council, reach out to Benchmark Biodiesel, Clean Fuels Alliance, and we can hook you up.
It is a clean fuel now, and I really like the plant more beans, make more money. Tom, that's fantastic.
I stole that from a Stone X trader that sells bean oil to all the big biodiesel, renewable diesel plants. I said, what's the message, Billy, to farmers? Tom, it's real simple. Plant more beans, make more money. So
that's great. I wrote that down too.
That is a perfect way to end this conversation. Madi, Paige, Tom, thank you so much. Thank you for the update on soy-based biofuels and the biofuels industry. We will catch up with you next time.
Great.
Thank you.
So much.
Thanks, Megan.
Nice seeing you.
I'm Meghan Grebner with Voice of Soy, a content partnership with the Ohio Soybean Council on Brownfield.